Oh, that's not good. Because Saab likes to make life interesting, and that's why interesting people drive Saabs, we have two brake fluid reservoirs here. One is for the clutch, one is for the brakes. Neither of them is labeled, and neither of them is accessible by just pouring straight into the reservoir. This one I can see probably a third of the cap from above, so both of them need a pretty long funnel to get in. I'm going to try to identify which one is clutch, fill the clutch system up, and then I'll do the brake one when my brakes are ready. Ouch. And there she goes. Right over the top. Let's get that in. So I have read that, like many British cars of the era, the slave cylinder is positioned below, or the bleeder for the slave cylinder is positioned below the master cylinder, which means that you can't bleed the you can't bleed the clutch system very effectively in place. So I'm gonna have to figure out. I think I'm gonna have to take the slave cylinder out or attach a See if I can do it in place though. I'm not sure. I think when they designed this car, they just decided that every bolt you're just going to be able to turn 1/6 of the way, and then you don't do work too fast. You know, you just don't want to be able to put a ratchet on anything, or it's about the simplicity of life. You want to keep it easy. You don't want to stress yourself. Just one step at a time. You out. Yay! Well, there's your slave cylinder. Oh, she's dusty. Oh my God. You gotta have the smallest tools possible to work on this thing. You know what? We're going to keep the old line. I've been trying to get the clutch system up and working. It has a hydraulic clutch. So what happened was we were bleeding like normal. The fluid is coming up the hose, and when we push the pedal down, the fluid would actually rise a couple inches. And then when I would bleed it, it would rise like maybe another 1/4 inch or 5 mils or something. But then when you shut the bleeder screw and let the pedal back out, the fluid would drop again, which tells me that it's actually sucking air into the slave cylinder, which is of course not very good. So I have to go find a rebuild kit for the slave cylinder, and I'm going to do the master cylinder too, just because it's probably due for that. So if I pump grease into it, it's going to hopefully push that piston out. You gotta be kidding me. There we go. Oh! If you haven't noticed, I'm new at all this stuff. Check that out. Can you see it? The piston is actually coming out. I am amazed that that worked. I am so happy about that. Holy crap. That's the seal, and then we have one more piece. There's the spring. Ew. That was a pretty messy process, but I gotta say, it worked way better than I thought it would. Call your auto parts store, get a grease fitting, do it. It's amazing. And if you can't find a grease fitting that fits, go call Wheel and Equipment Warehouse in Minneapolis, see if they can hook you up with a kit. I did stick my finger in where the piston was, and it's really smooth in there, but as you go further out, where the piston was kind of hung up on, it feels like there's some gunk on it, and you can see dark areas in it. So I'm going to go through and get a hone that out, and we'll commence with the rebuild. That's not confidence inspiring. I'm trying to save $200 by doing this, so maybe it's worth it. We have a piston that goes in and out. Yeah, buddy. Can I get a yeah, buddy? Yeah, buddy. I think the torque value is a... Okay, that should be it. Since both master cylinders are located directly underneath the steering rack and are virtually impossible to access otherwise, I removed the rack as specified in the manual. However, after finishing this episode, I was told you can remove the rack without removing the pinion shaft shown here. This information would have saved me many hours of work. So we've got the flex hose off of the original 5/8 inch Girling master cylinder. Hard to find parts for these, so a lot of people do this swap over to the Austin Healey 3000 clutch master cylinder from Moss Motors. I'll put the part number down here for you. And the only difference is you really need to switch over to the other, pedal interface. And it also doesn't do a remote reservoir, so you have to fill it down at the bottom. Hi, Nick. What are you doing? Nikki likes the master cylinders, apparently. How are you? And about 10 minutes later, there it is. So I, swapped it over. I greased up the end of there, the tip, so it will move around a little bit easier, not wear so much. And this giant boot, believe it or not, you just shove that right over the whole washer and it'll take it. So I'm going to throw a little bit more grease on this. For now, it's going to work and it's going to go back in, and I'm going to drive this stupid thing. Up, down. Hi! I have to drain the transmission fluid, the transmission oil, because it's really nasty, I'm sure. Oh boy! Oh, that is nasty. Oh, that's gross. I apologize for the clothing, but it's below freezing in the barn right now. I guess the snow's flying. For transmission fluid, the manual calls for straight 80 weight oil. I couldn't find a straight 80 weight. I'm told you have to buy it in a 5-gallon bucket, and not up for that challenge at this point, so I'm going to throw some 80W90 in. I'm sure it'll be better than what was in it, and it's oil. Tonight I'm going to try to put the steering rack in, and I cleaned that up, sprayed it with Detroit Diesel Alpine Green, which is a pretty close match for Saab's kind of army green, mint green stuff. Once I get that in, I can see if the car will go into gear while running and see if I can make that transmission spin the hubs. Before I install the rack in the car, I'd like to go over a small modification that I made that should make it a lot easier to work on. I found that the keyed nut on the bottom, which only goes on, one of 4 ways, is really hard to get off because you can't swing the wrench very easily in the engine bay. What I did was I took the bolt down to a fabrication shop and had them weld a hex nut on there so I can actually put a 3/4 inch wrench on there and then kind of tighten it little by little instead of, a full 180 at a time. Alright, battery's on charger. We'll see if this actually works. Now let's see if I can get in anything else but reverse. It does seem like it kind of goes into gears. I got into, I think first, I think reverse, and I think second. So I'm gonna go unhook the U-joint in the shifter mechanism, because the mechanism uses a kind of like a drive shaft, for lack of a better word, and see if it's within the shifter a problem or if it's a problem within the transaxle. The shifter itself works great. Right back here you have the input of the gear selector into the transaxle. So it wiggles in neutral, but it doesn't go forward and backward. Weird. I'll put it back together. Maybe it's worth getting some ATF through there tomorrow. It's Friday afternoon. Let's see if this thing will go down the driveway and I can flush the coolant down and flush the transmission out. Get this thing rolling. Here you can see why I moved into the garage. At the bottom I've unhooked the lower radiator hose, which is notoriously difficult to get to. And at the top I've unhooked the upper radiator hose. So the water feeds from the intake at the lower radiator hose and that goes through the engine. It'll come out this one. So I'm going to lead this through a pipe to a bucket, and then I'm going to throw a hose on the lower radiator hose and run the engine, and that should flush out any gunk that's in the engine, and I know the engine has gunk in it. It's pretty late right now. I want some pizza, so I'm going to get up early and start on this tomorrow morning, tomorrow's Saturday, Halloween, and try to get this thing in a condition that I can drive it to the car show in Stillwater. I decided to work on the lower radiator hose. I'd be better off pulling the radiator. So there are 4 bolts on the corners. There's one on the bottom there, one on the top, and it really helps if you pull out the light bezels in the grill. Then you can actually stick your hands in the lower holes for the radiator, for the lower cooling hose, and the holes for the driving lights. And then Dad's up here with his woodworking skills, and he is making a provisional trunk floor here so we can kind of run this thing, and hopefully that's gonna all work out soon. I don't think I'm gonna make it to the car show, but I might be able to drive it today later on once everything's done. So wish me luck. You measured right this time? There are no incorrect measurements. There are only measurements that do not bring joy.
The connection pipe's hitting there.
I see. Okay. Come on. Oh yeah. There's our lower rad hose. That's what we gotta work with. That's what came out. We also got this stuff. But at the end, you know, I put my hand under there and I felt it and I looked and it was clear at the end.
Just got a wire that goes underneath the.
Oh, right
I drilled
here.
the hole through a hole through the floor, ran a wire through the floor and up over the other side of the muffler.
Handy, handy.
Because the muffler's hung off the floor with the bracket.
Of course it is. The floor that always rusts out.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? So we've been testing, or Dad's been in here testing the tail lights. And now we have a stop light. That's great on the driver's side. He's gonna go through and clean those contacts up in here. See if we can, yeah, there you go. See if we can get those to work. Got the new hose here with our hose clamps for the lower radiator hose, so I'll pull the old one out. Gotta put the thermostat in, and then, what else? Put the radiator back in, hook everything up, fill that with coolant, then I need to flush out the transmission. Again, sorry for the lighting, but I'm doing with what I got right now. I just got the lower radiator hose in, the radiator back in. Holy crap, what a pain in the butt. I put the thermostat in, I need to fill the engine with coolant. You can hear it gurgling. Okay, she's overflowing in there. It's not good. It idles okay. I still have a little bit of tuning to figure out, and I'm not that good with carburetors yet, so I'm going to put it in gear, let it spin the wheels and run the transaxle up, and then hopefully work some of that gunk out. Once the transaxle is a little warm, I can drain it and do the ATF flush. Figure out what this light means, because it's...
What light?
There's an orange light here. It's an alternator indicator?
Charge indicator light. Well, it's orange when alternator is not charging.
But I had the alternator tested, and it said it was working. Alright, I just drained the transmission fluid, and went and took the plug out, the fill plug out, and I put 2 quarts of ATF in. And I didn't have the drain plug back in, so the ATF went straight through. Pretty embarrassing, but you know, it happens. So be careful when you're doing that. And here's the wrench. Hold this thing. We'll take the plug out again and fill it again. But it looks like I'm only going to get one flush through with ATF now because I wasted it all. You know, I swear, when I get this car on the road, I'm going to get a haircut. That's what's going to happen. Alright, now I got to run it for a couple minutes with ATF in the transmission. Alright, I went from the passenger side wheel spinning and the driver's side pretty much stationary to the exact opposite, so I think something's happening in there. I have a pizza, so I'm going to eat my pizza, drain the transaxle, refill it with actual gear oil, and we'll get out on the road. The car show ends at 2 o'clock and it's currently 1:30, so my plan is I'm going to try to refill this transaxle with gear oil and just drive it straight to the show, see if it'll work. It's 2:13. I didn't make it before 2, but I'm still going to take this thing out. I have a couple concerns with it. One is that it drips coolant out of the radiator on the side, so I have to keep an eye on the temperature, and the second is that the CV boots are torn really bad, so I plan on going through that this winter, but I want to get it out, go somewhere, and come back and do that in a little bit. It doesn't like partial throttle. I kind of got to goose it up there, but I think it'll make it into town. A couple miles in, I guess. We got a temperature in the middle, the alternator light's on, and the tank looks like it's full. The tack really doesn't work. I'm having a hard time finding gears, but you know, she's going down the road. So we're gonna keep going, keep putting along, and try to make it to NAPA to buy a couple vacuum plugs and lines and maybe some more coolant. I got it to NAPA. It needs a lot of tuning. Like, this thing it runs horribly, but it runs, and if I flat foot it, it will actually keep up with traffic somewhat. So I'm gonna get a couple parts for this, a little bit of coolant, a couple other stuff, and see if I can go downtown and get some nice shots of it before I take it home and fix more stuff. But thanks for coming along with me. The journey is not ended. Alright, so I took it down a quick burst down the road, and I was going to get some drive-by footage, but unfortunately I pulled the e-brake to turn around over here on the road, and the car quit as I spun around. So looking at this, it looks like, well, bear with me because my front camera doesn't work anymore, but my fuel filter is empty, so I'm thinking that the car probably ran out of fuel. Oh, there he is right now. Dad's coming to help me out and maybe give me a pull back, but really close to home, so it's not a big deal, and hopefully get this sorted out. Well, I got to run and I got to drive, and then I got to not run or drive, so that's a good end of this video. Thank you for watching Duluth Junction Workshop. Tune in next time. I'm going to try to get this thing actually driving again for this week, because it's supposed to be really nice weather this week. And after that, the trunk floor needs to be replaced, and I don't know how to weld, so that'll be a fun adventure. Yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe, and see you next time. You know, it's old and it's got that impression of, oh, it's like not that hard to work on. It is. It's like a pushrod engine surrounded by pains in the butt. Hey, Nikki. How are you doing? Me too.
You got enough nipple to get a clamp on though, right?
Okay, so, ow.